I totally get vision on a typical child. So a typical child literally is going to start lying there like Arlie, and eventually there'll be something visual here that'll attract her attention, and literally it'll pull her body over. It's the eyes that do the movement, start bringing you up. It's the eyes which start creating a baby to want something across the room and realizing that maybe they don't know what's crawling, but how do I get there? That's what a human does. How do I get there faster? And eventually we're walking and running and driving cars. We always want to do something faster. It's part of our human nature, our DNA. Whereas an animal is much more, I wouldn't say purposeful, but, procreating, family, survival of the fittest, that's an animal. Humans want to do faster, better. That's that competition. Even if it's baking bread, you still have to allow the yeast to rise a certain time, but boy, if they could figure a way to do it scientifically to speed it up, it'll happen. So when a child has developmental delays, okay, one of the things that I always go after, first of all, is where they start losing it, is what I always say, the counterbalance. So even just vision, if I go to look just at a sparkly or a light over here, in a baby, I should automatically tilt a counter. So as my vision goes and my eyes are still fixed with the head, I counter. Now a child that's developmentally delayed, let's say, is like this, there's no counter. And let's just say on top of that they have visual abnormalities. Let's say if the child is legally blind or visually impaired or has a crossed eye. So the conversations of looking at things diminish. So when the eyes visually diminish, so does the movement through the body. So you'll get much more, and this is what I did with her when I did the demo at ASTB, because I restricted her pelvis and the eyes just stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, I use it at night to get her to go to sleep. I do. Like, why can get your legs to quit moving so that your pelvis stops? You quit looking around and you go to sleep.
Well, as they get older too, it's like I tell my son, it's time to turn the brain off, say goodnight world, because he's there. So what I just did, this is getting up. My head goes with my feet, I go to get up. Okay, I'm on my elbow, it's a rotation through the pelvis. I totally get that. Now, no offense, if I have CP and I'm like this, rotations at this moment, traumatized, shock, however you want to look at it. So what I look at, now, I was taught an ATM in training. Now, when Feldenkrais did ATMs, he had an office called at Alexander Yanai. So all of his lessons are actually AY number 1, 2, 3. And it really just meant, because that's the street where the studio is at, Alexander Yanai. So it's not a person, it's a location. So on the Feldenkrais side, what I'm saying is I don't know the number for this lesson. So I'm just saying I learned this ATM in training. Now, when we were teaching the pelvis over the body, there's a really neat ATM where you elongate your arms as much as possible and allow that, and eventually you're going down. Now, I didn't fall at all doing this. Could I have done it better? Yeah, there's always, I could do it better. I haven't done this ATM in a couple of times and I'm giving this talk. So as I come up, the feet coordinate and bring the head up and bring my head up. Now also, I'm going to do this ATM different because I'm on foam versus the floor, whatever. But it's just the whole point. Also, the head has some place to go. Feldenkrais discusses this in the Amherst videos, but if your knees are close together, first of all, I can go down kind of like this, not the same, but getting up is very difficult. Now I have to start using muscles and momentum differently because my head doesn't have some place to go. So, and he proves this in a different ATM. Let's see if I can do this. Ha ha ha, it's been a while. You went, there you go. And so your head has some place to go. So that's a whole nother.
That looks like a familiar position.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is where you get babies. So when I have a kid that's visually impaired, right? First of all, if they're visually impaired, usually I've got head instability. So if I'm coming up like this, right, my head's quite stable. This is when the gyroscopes are working functional. My pelvis is working nice, the back of my head, my wrist, my gyroscopes are in play, and I can go up and down, great. So, but if I'm, let's say, hypotonic, which means low tone, right, my head is like this. Now, where's my vision with all of this? There's nothing. I'm not, my eyes are superseding. And it's a very interesting phenomenon with motorcycles, which your husband doesn't know well. The bike will go wherever your eyes are going. If you look down, the bike's going down. You have to, so if I'm going into the turn and I'm turning on my motorcycle, I have to keep my eyes with the horizon or where the road is going. So if the road's going up, my eyes have to go up. And it's difficult for some people to do because they might get concentrated on something, but that's where you see like the twisties going up to Yarnell, their buddy goes off the hill, and so they're looking at their buddy, and then they go after that. You'll see like several bikes follow because they're not going with the road or looking through the turn. So, but it's the same thing with babies. So when I have a child that's developmentally delayed, visually delayed for whatever reason, I like to start the conversation here, so when they come up, it's much easier, and when they come up, they can find the horizon. So this showing them more that their brain is working visually, versus coming up here and getting up here, you know what I mean, and the eyes crossed, and they're trying to stabilize. It takes so much longer to, quote, kick in the eyes. I go to kick in the eyes first, because when the eyes are more stable, then the entire system is more stable. So that's just, and I've played with it enough, it works. So there's no, well, we'll see. No, my son had cortical visual impairment. He was legally blind, he had a 3-5. The infection also went between the eyes. So we did the baby program at Foundation for Blind Children. He did preschool Foundation for Blind Children. So I'm not taught with, I didn't go to ASU for vision, but as a mom, I've been around enough kids that are visually impaired, and through Movement Lesson, I've done enough kids that are visually impaired. Another thing that I didn't know, it was the diaphragm. You can go back to old videos of me, and even Diane's going, there's Michelle with that magic button. You'll see me work with the infants, literally behind here, and then all of a sudden it's like, their eyes are like off, and all of a sudden they go, and it's like, hello, and their eyes are they're just functioning. I didn't know why, again, until I did the Amherst with Feldenkrais, and he doesn't go into it why, but if the diaphragm's unorganized, so is the vision. So when the diaphragm gets organized. I remember you saying that when you borrowed her. Yeah, so when the diaphragm gets organized and the vision gets organized. Another thing that can happen too, if you ever see a child where the neck is flat against the surface, he mentions that a child will definitely be in glasses by age 6. So that's another thing that throws the vision. But my son used to eat, and literally his eyes would spin in his head, and I'd look at my husband going, because I've learned the brain can handle only so much, and usually the eyes are the first ones to cop out when there's a weakness in the system, because basically his brain was saying, I'm busy eating, you want me to see too? Yeah, have a nice day. It's not happening. So that's one of the reasons why. So once the vision kicks in, that's when I can go back and start working on the child maybe on the elbow and coming down and bringing them around. Or I shouldn't say kicks in, maybe stabilizes more, becomes more sophisticated. But vision is movement, and it's a learned function just like any other function in the human body. So that's my spot on vision. And then that's why too, though, I could do a lot, but when I get Diane in, that she can work on, and she and I really feed off of each other. She knows what I'm looking for. So even though, let's say, a child's vision is, quote, 20/20.
Right.
I'm looking at functional vision. Working the room, someone's going into Alzheimer, I can tell it years before because their functional vision is decreasing so rapidly. Like with Alzheimer's, they don't work the room, very similar to autism. You don't have that working the room. You have a very limited palate, so the choice of food starts decreasing substantially. And you see that also a lot with the autism. And then the gait really goes as well, which is what I'm talking about here, how the foot, and you see that here. The way my feet go out, bring my head up and go back down to tuck. So, I mean, you can do it faster once you, get the rocking, and you can start bringing one leg out and bringing the other leg out, or coming up here, It just becomes more complex how to do that movement. So, I would just say, as far as my son's concerned, I paid attention. Cortical visual impairment is one of the so overlooked, because basically that's saying the eyes are fine, but by the time the information gets to the brain, there's that delay. So my son was more like, I called it, it's like looking at the sun or magnesium. You want to look here, but it's so overwhelming. You'll see that kind of response. But what people do then is they bring the object over here now. Well, their brain's processing object here. Now you put the object here, so then they're going back here, and then they're going back here, and object A is missing.
It's like crunching him a peekaboo.
So, yeah, you really need to very slow, keep the object here, and along like what you're doing with her development. She goes in and out of object recognition, and she starts to recall it more and more. But when that doesn't happen, that's what they call delayed maturation, and then if the delayed maturation is not rectified by 1 year of age, it's then switched over to a diagnosis of cortical visual impairment, and then there's a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. So my son was a 3-5, and now he's a 10. He still has glitches, so he's not lost the CVI diagnosis, but he's 11 now. He's mainstream. It doesn't affect him per se, but it's still something we work with. So, matter of fact, Diane and I just did a vision lesson on him not too long ago, and he liked it so much he stole my balls and took it to class and he did the 5th grade and the 4th grade, and
That's that thing you were telling us about with the dad. Yeah.
Not only that, but he's telling me over pizza, he goes, Mom, the whole class, their eye-hand coordination improved, and here's my kid sitting there doing, a movement lesson on his classmates, and they all paid attention, and the teacher let him do it.
Nice.
So since it was so successful, they let him do the 4th grade too. So,
that's fun.
Who knew? So even though she's a healthy little girl, when she's looking up at me like this, she can't sit up. When the eyes are back, it's just not happening. They're not. Even for me just to lift her head is going to be difficult. You think? So now as she starts moving her eyes to the side, then I can start going for a ride. Yeah? Have you said your first word yet? You're working on it very hard. Yeah. So here, I can very easily start working on the lift. Now she looks over here, then I can do the lift over here. Very slowly, and just see if there's anything in the back that doesn't want it to happen. Why was she doing it so funny?
She got a really good deep pout on. You in your head.
Because you're pretty. Yeah, because you're pretty. See, feet go out just like I was doing, so I can bring her right up through the center. Now, if it's done proportionally, see, she's rolling. It's just like I just did. I'm not initiating muscle strength. Now, I know on her own she can't, quote, do that movement.
Right.
But when I'm holding her, I stop or something? Did I stop? Did you want to play with Mr. Elephant? I really like him. You know why? Because I can go. Elephant. That's okay. I had to end up doing it for Austin for 40 minutes.
That's awesome.
So here, it's just a gentle rock, feet head. Bump, bump. Again, I'm not looking for her to sit up. I'm looking for the connection of the system. It is plastic. You chew those suckers the wrong way and it's going to be a little rough. Yeah. But here, the elbow goes down, the hand goes down nicely. Boom. She's on the right hand, or the left hand, sorry, coming down off the elbow, except she had to go over the beads, so maybe she didn't like that. Would you like something that's a bit more petite? Is that better? So.
Says or, I mean and. Really?
So see how nicely, though, she touched something, so her eyes went, oh, what's that? See, now here she's trying to use too much muscles, so she's not going to sit up properly. And also, you can tell she's doing that because her arms are splayed, both elbows were splayed down, like she's trying to push off with her elbow. Yeah? I'm kind of using you as a little bit of a demo, so it's not like you're truly getting a lesson. But I've worked with you enough, I figured you can handle it. But if that bothers you, I'll go back to just giving you a lesson and winging it, if that's okay. You know what? You could get a spot in the new Star Wars movie. They're casting now.
Baby.
There, visually, she caught it. The arm goes down.
Hi.
And see how naturally her arms on both sides want to go down to the surface. Even though if I let her go, it's not going to support her. I'm just talking about she knows her proportion.
When she is sitting up, she's gotten much better when she starts going to the side about putting a hand down.